There we go. Okay, so we're live. Nice. Let's close this out. Let's throw this to the I'll be debating, so we'll have a copy of the VOD. And let's throw this to let's hop on my one now then. Desktop audio's up, mic audio's up. Can you hear me?
Hello.
How's it going, bud?
Excellent.
How's your day been?
Not bad, you.
Pretty good. What you been doing?
So you think I'm a racist homophobe?
I do. I think you're a race realist who says that you want all gay people to die, right?
What
are those? Those are both true things, right? Those are both things that you've said. That you're a race realist.
Gayness is a mental illness, and it should it should be frowned upon.
Wow, it's what a shocker. I think you're a homophobe, and you also think that like gay people are like mentally ill. That's no surprise here though. So what have you been doing today though?
I mean, not much, but how come we don't think it's a mental illness?
You know, it's Valentine's Day, right? That's really sad, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm an incel, so.
Oh damn, damn rip, my dude. Yeah, no. So I think that homosexuality is not a mental illness. I also think that race realism is completely baseless. I'm a huge fan of the scientific method, and so if you have any scientific academic literature that shows that race is truly based in science, I'm willing to concede. But I've never seen any, and I've seen a lot of data that shows the opposite. In fact, I've seen data that shows there's more merit to the idea that being a racist is correlated with your true fluid intelligence than your race is, right? So we have data that shows that like the two largest contributing factors to somebody being racist are one, being poor, right? That leads to like being undereducated, which is like a huge correlatory factor for racism, and it leads to also the second one, the second major factor here is being stupid. Stupid people are far more likely to have racist intent, to be a race realist like you. I think there are a lot of correlatory factors that show that if anyone's subhuman, it's race realists.
I mean, I guess, but I just care about aesthetics mostly.
I'm not surprised. So when you say race is real, like you're a race realist, what do you think realness means?
I don't know. I just think like a common goal, like, is to like get like a bunch of like gays the common enemy, and that will like get a bunch of stuff done, you know.
Do you think the common enemy being some like random scapegoat is going to be more useful than the common enemy being somebody who's actually bad for society?
I mean, we don't really know. Like, we all have different opinions on who's bad for society.
Okay, what is your goal for society? Because clearly you're using race, right, as like a means to an end. You don't care about race for its own sake. You care about some ends that race gets you to. You said using a race as a scapegoat can get you to like a better society somehow. Just wondering, what do you think a better society is?
Like fascism.
Okay, fascism would be a better society. So what aspects of fascism are better than like a non-fascist society?
Just to like just keep people in line, and you know, use eugenics and stuff like that.
So eugenics for like obviously for not just eugenics for its own sake, but eugenics for some ends, right? So fascism is just a means again to an end, and eugenics for you is also a means to an end. What is that end? What is your end goal? What do you think of the perfect society? What are the attributes of it? Those fundamental baseline attributes, right?
Well, eventually we'd get every other race to look more white, and everyone would be straight.
Oh, do you know there's actually a really reliable way to make other races look more white? Do you know what it is? It's race mixing. It's race mixing.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay, so are you a huge fan of miscegenation?
Do
you love miscegenation, I'm asking?
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of based. Surprising, but based. Are you sure you know what miscegenation is?
I'm assuming mixed racing.
Oh, well, it's bad to assume, but yes, it is in fact race mixing. So you think like miscegenation between like whites and blacks is like a huge positive for society, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. This is a huge turnaround from like the race realist who wants to like use other races as a scapegoat.
Well, like I said, the best way to achieve socialism is to get everyone to look similar in the country.
Well, when I want socialism, I want actual socialism. What you want is like a just more the state is like one big capitalist enterprise. I don't think that's really socialism, is it?
Well, as much socialist as the USSR was, I guess.
Okay, so not socialist, according to like Lenin, the founder of the USSR, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not a socialist. Let's get that clear. Like, you're not a socialist. You shouldn't pretend to be one.
Yeah, I'm not a socialist.
Okay. So what you care about is like, it seems to be like you care more about like these weird abstract sort of like feelsy things that are like kind of near the aesthetic. You don't really have like a solid end goal.
No, not really.
Okay, that you realize why that's stupid, right?
I mean, I'm not really pragmatic or anything. I guess I'm just a LARPer, I guess.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can't press you harder on being a LARPer if you just admit to being one. So I guess we agree here. You are in fact a LARPer. We could talk about the gay people thing, I guess, because you kind of just like conceded the point on the race realism thing, which is a smart idea for the record. If you concede the point on the race realism thing, you have brought yourself like much further than a lot of race realists do, who will like sit here and try to pretend that they understand like the biology of the biology of race. It's just it ends up making you look worse than just conceding. So what's your reason for thinking that being gay is a mental illness?
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, being gay itself should not be illegal, but if a gay person cannot act normal, then that's a mental illness, and that will have to go to jail or something to get cured.
You think any case where somebody isn't acting normal is a form of mental illness?
Yeah.
Any case where somebody doesn't act normal?
Yep.
Oh, like incels.
Possibly.
I think so. I mean, I don't know, bud. So also like people who like let's name some other things that are abnormal, but that you probably have like no moral weight to. Like what about people who like play slightly too much Dungeons and Dragons? These people would be abnormal, right?
Yeah.
What about people who like actually, what about being white? Most people aren't white. So being white is slightly abnormal, isn't it?
True.
Okay, but you probably wouldn't say that being white is a mental illness, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, you won't see yourself as mentally ill because you are gay.
This is correct. I am, in fact, half gay.
Well, what do you mean half gay? I mean, if someone's bi, that's just gay.
Oh, that's what I mean, yeah, bi. It's an inside joke. I'm sorry you didn't get it. Okay, so I don't want to leave too much dead air here. So you think that being gay is a mental illness. We've agreed that like just because something's abnormal doesn't mean it's a mental illness, right? You agree with this now. You didn't earlier, but you do now. So what are some other things that make something a mental illness other than being abnormal? Since clearly that alone is not enough to make something a mental illness. What are some other aspects of being gay that make it abnormal?
Just that it's mocking creation, you know. It's just
mocking creation?
Like nature is intended for people to act.
Yes, it is. If you can apply intent to nature, then absolutely nature intends for people to act homosexual. We live in the natural world. People are part of the natural world. Gay people are some of those people. So necessarily it exists within nature.
I mean, animals fuck their own gender.
There are many animals that do, yeah. Which would make it natural, right? Somewhat. I mean, entirely. There's nothing more natural than like what exists in the natural world. Like, that would be the natural sciences, right?
Animals do.
So what?
Well, we're a lot different from animals. So
we are, but I'm not the one who said we ought to be natural. You are. You said we ought to be natural. This is not like something unnatural. So now you have to have another reason, right? What's your other reason why being gay is bad?
I don't know. You win, I guess. Sorry, man. I don't.
Oh, come on. At least dig deep on it. I have to have more than, like, what is this, 10 minutes of content?
I'm not really that homophobic. I guess I'm just homophobic for the aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, you're just doing it for the LARP, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if I guess we could talk about something a little bit more productive now then. So with the incel stuff, are you like, is this an extension of the LARP for you, or is there like some aspect of like, I guess getting laid or whatever that you find like remarkably difficult?
Well, I guess I just haven't really tried that hard.
Oh, so I guess you're kind of a volcel?
Yeah, also.
I mean, it's not like it's like always easy for everyone. There are a lot of people out there who are like through no fault of their own, there are aspects of about like who they are as a person, like the way they look, uncontrollable aspects of their personality, that seem to like undermine their ability to like to form a relationship, and it sucks. It's massively detrimental to a lot of people's lives. But it doesn't seem like for you, the aspects of your personality that make it hard for you to get laid would be ones that are out of your control. It seems like they're things you kind of acknowledge, like the flaws in, and kind of things that you're willing to move past, right? But the aspects that are like keeping you from getting laid. I mean, I don't know what you look like. Maybe that's a huge burden on you. Do you think that's what it is?
I'm average looking, but
Okay.
Would you consider the difference between volcel and incel is that incels masturbate and volcels do not masturbate?
No. I would consider the difference is like an incel is like somebody who can't get laid through like no fault of their own, right? Or who getting laid is
can get laid.
True. Anybody can within the like the scope of like the purely theoretical. Everyone can do something that probably gets them laid, with the rare exception of like people who are like born without like the capability to do so because of like lack of genitalia or something.
And if someone doesn't masturbate,
yeah.
that means they really are volcel.
But to answer your question, I think an incel is somebody who, beyond some threshold, some like reasonable threshold where we draw the line, it's like too difficult for them to get laid for it to be reasonable to like think they ought to, right? And I think the other option is going to be volcels, which are people who are not getting laid because of things that are well within their control. Things like, for example, if you're like constantly saying like that you're like a race realist or a Nazi to everyone you meet, this is probably going to be something that like that hurts your chances of getting laid. Realistically, it does, right? This would be an aspect of you that would be like a volcel aspect, right?
True.
Yeah. And like the having really, really weird social values that are like unjustified would probably be something that a lot of people would like kind of impulsively think is like really, really weird, and that would also be a huge hindrance to you. So these would be still things that are volcel. They're within your control. An incel is somebody who it's outside of their control, right? It's like matters of like their looks. This is well outside of their control, or like their wealth can be like well outside of their control. Like they're in like a small area with not a lot of people. The nearest places to them where they could get laid are like their car driving distance or whatever, and they don't have a car. Like these are things that people can't control, right?
True. But
yeah.
They could still get a hooker, you know.
They could. No, in fact, everyone does have like within like some like reasonable scope. Almost every single person who considers themselves an incel, there's something they could do that would get them laid. But really, it's less about just getting laid and more about like genuine relationships. And even then, it's about like a threshold of like how difficult it is, not like it being possible at all, right?
Are you an incel or volcel?
Oh no, I mean I used to be kind of like a volcel, I guess, but I never like called myself an incel or thought that there was like some aspect of like myself that I couldn't control, that made it hard for me to get laid, or hard for me to get like attention from other people who I find attractive. It's just a matter of like I thought it was like sexual. I don't know, like I don't want to call it sexual deviancy because like obviously I'm bi, which is like pretty deviant, right? But I think that I used to think that like being overly sexual was in and of itself like a big bad thing, and because of that I wanted to like take a long time before I like got into like a real relationship that was meaningful or something along those lines. So I've never been an incel like you, Chlor. I've never claimed to be an incel like you, but I have been like a volcel, and that's what like I openly identified as one.
Yeah.
Partly for the meme aesthetics, right?
Has way better aesthetics than incel. Because like the fact that they're choosing not to even have sex.
What did you say?
Like it just has way better aesthetics because like it's just so crazy that someone would choose not to have sex when they can.
Oh yeah, I think for a lot of people it is really crazy, right? To like the idea of like choosing not to have sex when you can, but for other people like for me in particular at the time, the celibacy kind of seemed like a virtue almost, like a thing that I ought to strive for. And it's weird because it conflicts with a lot of other aspects of like my identity, like being like being super far left at the time, and like being like a like an open bisexuals. Like these are weird things that don't seem to like usually fit with that. But I think I don't think there's anything wrong morally at all with choosing to like wait a while, right?
Yeah, and I mean, plus if they're on NoFap, that's just gonna eventually make them want to have sex even more.
True. Being on NoFap is also like not good for you, right? Like there is like initially, I believe if I remember correctly, there's like a slight testosterone peak and then it drops off, right? It's lower than normal, and it's also bad for your prostate health. So it's like the NoFap thing seems to be really bad. I'm glad I've never been on that train.
It like permanently like gives you testosterone.
I don't believe there are any studies that actually corroborate that.
Well, there's no studies that say it's really bad for your prostate either.
I can provide you with studies actually that show that like masturbation is huge for prostate health. But this is kind of like a more bland conversation, I guess. If you want, we can delve into the medical research here. I just don't think it's like hugely productive.
True. I mean, I try to attempt NoFap just for like a thrill or to see how hard it is.
Well, that is a different mindset than a lot of the NoFap people, I guess. I can't relate to that one though. No like life story I can give you that would like relate in any way to being NoFap, I guess.
And it may make people less gay, I think.
You think it would make people less gay?
Yes, they'd be more masculine.
Really? Do you have any studies that show that's like remotely true?
Well, based on just my experience, like it makes my voice deeper and I just have more energy.
It makes your voice deeper and you have more energy. Based on your own personal anecdote and not based on any like data you have that shows that this is the case, you just sort of like feels like it's the case. Have you ever heard of the placebo effect? I'm sure you have, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's probably the placebo, but
yeah, this is like when we see that there's like a thing that people like, they had these anecdotes about, like I personally tried this thing and it was huge for me. That was like massively beneficial. Usually the cases, if it clashes with the data, it's just the placebo effect. Because even if you know something's placebo, it can still be a reliably effective placebo, right? So I don't really think that there's any reason to go down the NoFap train, other than maybe like personal entertainment, I guess. Like I don't see any if it's a thing that you find like entertaining somehow, I'm not gonna stop you, right?
True, and I mean I'd just be too addicted to fapping anyway.
That is a if you find that it's like some kind of addiction, then it probably is good to limit yourself in some way, right? It's probably good to like cut that off.
I mean, it probably wouldn't help you at all since you're pretty much like you get relationships and stuff like that. So
that is true.
So do you like women or men more?
Oh, it depends. Relationship wise, men more. Otherwise, I don't have a preference. What about you personally? What's your like when from like the incel perspective? What do you think the hardest aspect of, I guess, having trouble finding relationships is?
Just not be boring, I guess.
Not be boring?
Yeah, just like I don't know what to say.
Oh, that's all right. So I think that there's like not being boring is probably important, both like for the relationship itself and for like people to find you attractive. But I think what's more important than not being boring is a matter of like not putting people off with certain like negative characteristics or just characteristics that are sort of like associated really hard with like negative personality types. Like there are a lot of things that a lot of people are going to view as super harsh red flags. And it probably would be a lot better for your emotional health if you were able to get a relationship, and it's going to be easier to get a relationship if you distance yourself from the LARPs, I think. But that's just my personal opinion here. It seems to be the case. I don't have data on that, so I would just have to appeal to your intuition there. Like, it's probably not, most people are not going to like or I wouldn't really have to appeal to your intuition. It's always something you could just try out, and you could see if if doing it works for you. And if so, I think it would be a really compelling reason to cut the edgy LARP and like stick to something that's more like genuine and true to yourself. I know like the be yourself meme is super cringe, but it can be really really huge for like emotional development if you do your best to be as genuine and authentic as possible.
So what are you economically?
Oh, economically, I'm very very far left. I'm what you'd call like a cooperativist, or like do you know who Robert Owen is?
Um, yes.
You do.
Well, no, actually, no, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, Robert Owen was a cooperativist from England. He's the first person to ever use the term socialist in the English language, which is like hugely influential now. The idea that he had was the backbone of society being a democratically controlled workplace. This is what I advocate for. I advocate for instead of the backbone of society being a privately controlled workplace, or the entirety of a country being one big privately controlled workplace, I want a lot of tiny democratically controlled workplaces. The only reason I want this is because the data points to it being the best possible thing for humanity as a whole.
Yeah, I'm also a market socialist, but in a more authoritarian kind of way. Like if the workers can't decide what to do with the profits, the government will just decide.
So being a market socialist on one hand is like something we both agree with, but on the other hand, then you have this authoritarian aspect, and it just doesn't to me make much sense why you would say like an authoritarian dictatorship on a small scale doesn't work, but somehow if we make it huge, it'll start working, right? Like if we both agree that those little authoritarian dictatorships of like capitalist enterprises are really bad, then the big authoritarian dictatorship is probably not going to be much better than just one big capitalist enterprise, right?
Well, I don't know. It just seems like it will take a long time for like big companies to decide stuff democratically.
It can sometimes be slow for a democratically run workplace to come to those decisions, but a lot of the time there are like it is really really easy to make some sort of emergency protocol that you can rely on for those rapid fire decision making. Either like somebody who's like in some specific field somewhere who's elected by the people, by the workers, right, could make that decision on the fly, given some kind of like some power that's granted to them through some kind of like constitution, right? These are things you could do. The other option is like granting a tremendous amount of power to one individual and not giving the workers the ability to override that. And then what you have there is just now instead of a bunch of little tiny corporation, you have one massive corporation. And I think we both know small capitalist businesses are a lot better than big capitalist businesses when it comes to like caring about the customer on like a true human empathy kind of level, not just for the sake of profit.
So, would you say you're more of an ANCOM or a tanky?
Oh, I would say neither of these. I probably lean a lot more towards like the lib left area, right? But I would never call myself like in either extreme. I think that there's like I'd probably call myself like a democratic market socialist because I think the data seems to be the case or seems to indicate this is the best possible decision for us to go forward with. And then once we're here, we could make probably more analyses and like we could predict more and like do more research and then pick where we go next. But I think for now, the only movement we need to do is go towards from here, from capitalism to democratic socialism, just because this is what we have the research for.
Would you consider Syria democratic socialist?
North Syria? You mean like Rojava?
Or like Assad and?
Oh, to my knowledge, no, they're not they're not pluralist, which means that you have to have approval from the primary party if you want to like run as an independent candidate there. Which means that effectively, what you have is instead of having a democracy, you now have a bureaucracy, right? You have this one big party that's able to choose who can even be a candidate, which is awful for the democratic process, I think.
True, they did capture the state, so I guess they're not really democratic anymore.
That is true, yeah. No, which is why I wouldn't advocate for something like that. I think there are a lot of real world examples that we could point to that have their issues, but that we could take examples from and modify so that they could fit like the current society we live in as like a major improvement. The obvious examples are like the economy of like Yugoslavia, the market socialist economy they have there, which was like highly democratized. I think could be massive for implementing something like that in the U.S. I think the U.S.'s existing system, it's sort of like a 3-branch government system, needs huge work and needs to be like some aspects of it need to be probably replaced with like some kind of direct democracy. But I think with American
characteristics like that.
You could probably call it something like that. I do want like a more unique to the U.S. kind of socialism that'll fit more with like the best aspects of our values and allow us to like move forward from like the worst values we have. So like I'm sure we can both agree that like, there are huge flaws in every society on Earth, America included. These flaws come usually from some kind of like deep ingrained value. I think that the idea of like individualism can be huge in some aspects and like hugely detrimental in others. And I think what we have to do is we have to sort of like balance the best aspects of American society with the worst aspects and do what we can to like get rid of the worst ones and promote the best ones. And I think there's like there's something fundamental about what America is as a nation that I think is something that's worth preserving. So yes, some like a socialism with American values, I guess, could be fine, unless it's like a dog whistle or something I don't know about.
True. It'd probably end up Nazgul anyway.
I probably wouldn't say it would end up too close to like the Nazgul territory. I would never advocate for something like that. But
Wait, you'd rather have capitalism over Nazgul?
Oh, I'm not sure that I would call Nazgul not capitalist. I'd probably say that they're both forms of capitalism. What I'd rather have is like I do think that a market is better than a fully planned economy. But I think like some aspects of planning and some aspects of a market are really, really good together. And I think we have huge historical examples for this. And I think the best thing to do is to have some kind of like socialist market economy, right? Sort of market socialist economy. I don't want to sound like dingus over here. But I just don't think the nationalist route is really good for the U.S. I think that what the U.S. needs to promote is like a global sense of unity with all proletariats, which is why I'd call myself like an internationalist, not a nationalist.
Well, would you consider market socialism left center or off center?
Oh, I would consider it probably like left center or lib left area.
True, it'd probably be like in between the quadrant of off left in the middle.
Yeah, I would agree. Probably like a little bit of a lean towards like the lean towards like the libertarian side of things because of the fact that it's like, of course, it's a market, right? Which means less top-down control, but it still means like the social equality, which is like necessary for the long-term preservation of any society.
True. Well, I think this is the end of the debate.
Yeah, I think this is a great place to end it.
All right, so have a good one.
All right, peace. You have a good one. All right, that conversation was remarkably productive. I was not expecting a conversation that productive. I'm glad that worked out. I'm kind of surprised he just moved off of it like that. It does take a lot of intellectual honesty to just sort of like admit that the reason you did something was like or the reason you believe something was like dumb when challenged on it and move off of it. There are a lot of people who don't do that, and it's really good to see somebody who does. So I guess this will be the end of the stream. It was a short one there. I think that one was more entertaining than the last few, but it had a pretty quick drop off in terms of like the actual entertainment value there, unfortunately. But it was productive, which is good. All right, stream ending.